Afternoon. This is Monica coming from my potting patio once again. Today in this video I'd like to show you my 16 philodendrons that are in my collection. For sure philodendrons have gotten incredibly popular over the last year or so. Things that used to be extremely rare back in 2019 have become more available these days. I myself do some importing. I have had about 50-50 success rate with the imports. I would say that some of them have come dead on arrival, unfortunately. Some of them have been almost pristine, so it's a little bit of a gamble, but for the completion of my wish list for philodendrons, I find it really is the best way for me to get my hands on some of the species that aren't as readily available in the States and for a better price. Usually the price will outweigh the gamble, for me at least. Plus, I find it exciting to be able to open up that package and cross your fingers and hope that they are green with healthy root systems and plump, firm stems. It's almost like Christmas. It's plant Christmas, what can I say? So here we go. The first philodendron I'd like to show you is the very popular these days, the Philodendron varicosum. Very velvety, and look, it is a perfect, almost heart-shaped leaf. I have this guy growing in a little bit of sphagnum moss. I got him about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. He does have a new leaf that has unfurled and is looking a little peaked at the moment, but hopefully it's just because he's a little soft and needs to get his legs underneath him. But everything else looks very healthy on this plant. I absolutely adore the undersides. It is definitely a show in the front and a show in the back. So I have to say that this has quickly become one of my favorites. It does have a slightly fuzzy petiole just behind here. You probably won't be able to see it at all, but we'll see how this guy progresses, as I know he's been extremely popular as of late. The next philodendron in my collection definitely has some growing to do still. I received this one about maybe a month and a half ago. It's the Philodendron soderoy. There are 2 leaves on it. Unfortunately, I don't see any new leaves emerging just yet, but I was desperate for this philodendron in my collection. I'm a little obsessed with the silver sheen that the maniai and the soderoy have. I'm also really big into big leaves, so hopefully this guy can pick it up a little bit in the coming months before the end of the growing season and put on a little bit more growth, because right now I'm a little concerned that he hasn't done a whole lot since I got him. But this is my Philodendron soderoy. Here's the other leaf I'll show you. But that shimmery silver on the leaves is just fantastic. There we go. All right, next up we have one of my 2 Florida ghosts. This philodendron, I have to say, is, I mean, easy peasy. I water this guy just about once every 2 weeks or so. Oh, you can't even see my face. The leaf is in the way. No fuss, no browning tips, keeps putting out new leaves. Of course, it's called the Florida Ghost because when a new leaf emerges, it is almost it's a very, very light green, almost white-like. And then as it matures and hardens off, it becomes a darker green. I believe that the Florida philodendron is a cross between the bipennifolium and the squamy furum. The Florida Ghosts, or the Florida philodendron, does not have the fuzzy stems like on the squamy furum. But I have to say this is probably one of the least hassle philodendrons that I own. The other one is a little bit smaller, but still in just as good condition and growing like a weed. Next up in my collection is a rather rare philodendron. I wish also that he was doing a little bit more because he looks a little sad. He does have a new leaf coming out, but this is the Philodendron perodiso verde. I've had this one for about 3 or 4 months now. He was an import. His root system was very, very strong. He looked pretty good. The leaves are a little floppy. They look a little bit almost as if they were new leaves, but they've been on here for quite some time and haven't really changed, so I'm a little concerned about that. As I did mention, he does have a new leaf coming. I don't know if you can see that right there, but hopefully that one comes out. I have him propped up with a little a little chopstick, actually, just to keep him upright, because I do want to give him enough light so that the variegation continues, but does not allow him to get too burnt. So stay tuned on this one. I am very excited to see this one mature because I had a tremendously difficult time finding him in the United States, so I did import this one from Indonesia. All right, another one of my imports. I received 3 Philodendron melanocrysons. Quite honestly, I am struggling with these guys. 2 of them are putting out some new growth, but again, they're a little floppy considering how long these leaves have been on there. I do have one that the last leaf just fell off, but it is pushing out a new leaf, so hopefully that one unfurls nice, strong, and healthy. I adore these plants in the sense that those pictures on Instagram, they are mature and velvety and just gorgeous. So right now, the verdict is out on my opinion for melanocrysons. Clearly, they just aren't that happy with me. Hopefully, that will change in the next few months, but we'll have to keep an eye on them, and I'll let you know how they do. All right, next up, we have a plain old Philodendron burleymarks. Again, this is an extremely hardy, grows like a weed philodendron. This actually was an import. I know that sounds a little silly because they are relatively easy to come by. I actually had ordered a variegated burleymarks, and this is one of the plants that was supposed to be variegated. I do not and did not see any variegation in the stems when I unpacked it, and truth be told, you know, it's healthy and it's a plant and it's an import, and so I'm just glad that it's healthy and survived the shipping. So it keeps putting out new growth. I'll show you the back of it. You can see all of those new leaves that are just waiting to come out. I mean, maybe there'll be a variegation in there, but I doubt it. Just looking from the stems, I don't see any variegation in sight. But you know what? Half the battle is having a healthy plant that's alive. So I'm gonna just love it for what it is. All right, so this guy was also an import. This is my Hestatum silver sword. When I imported him back in March, they were probably at the height of their popularity. They are becoming less expensive and easier to come by these days. Nonetheless, I love this guy. His leaves are nice and sturdy. He's got that silver coloring that everyone loves so much, and he has put out probably two new leaves since I've received him, and there's no end in sight for this guy. Very low maintenance in my opinion. I have not given him anything to climb just yet because he is self-supporting. But I love this guy, and I can't wait to repot him into a bigger pot, get him onto a moss pole, and I think he'll really be a true statement piece, especially with that coloring. I mean, silver. Who doesn't love silver? It's almost as good as pink. All right, so this guy was my first ever rare plant. This is my Philodendron Pink Princess. I got this one from Puerto Rico. I won it on an eBay auction. To be quite honest, it did not come in the best condition. I was quite disappointed considering I'd spent a fair bit of money at the time. Less than I would now, of course, because these are going up in popularity day by day. It did have a beautiful half moon leaf that was damaged in shipping. The stem was kinked, and so it promptly fell off a few days afterwards, which just broke my heart. She's put out a new leaf or 2. She actually has a new leaf that's coming just now, but I ended up repotting this one about a week ago or so, and when I pulled her out of the original pot, I noticed that some of the roots they weren't rotted, but it didn't have a very big established healthy root system for the size of the plant, even though this girl isn't that big. So I put her in water to propagate for a few weeks. She grew a few more roots, made sure everything was good to go, and I just repotted her into this terracotta pot about a week ago. So next up we have my Philodendron Golden Goddess / Thai Sunrise, although I'm not entirely sure that it truly is a Thai sunrise, even though it was advertised as such. My understanding for Thai sunrises is that they usually have some red splotches on them. They do also have some fully yellow leaves, but there is not a red splotch in sight of this girl, but she is beautiful nonetheless. The leaves actually have a similar patterning to the painted lady when they first come out and then mature. I don't know if you can see it from the video here, but they're almost a little bit like a splash that go between the light yellow, almost chartreuse green, to the darker yellow green color. But this girl probably will need a moss pole in the next few weeks here. She's putting out aerial roots like crazy, but she is self-supporting, so we are good to go for right now. But again, this is the Philodendron Golden Goddess, and she, so far, so good, is pretty darn low maintenance, and just keeps putting out new growth day after day. So definitely want to keep an eye out, and if you don't already have it, they're fairly accessible. They're not too expensive, but definitely consider adding this one to your collection. Next up, we have my Philodendron plow maniai. This one has the most beautiful leaves. They have so much depth to them, and I love that little bit of red right at the end of the lobes of the leaves. This one came to me, it had 2 leaves on it. It sprouted a 3rd since I've gotten it. The oldest leaf has seen better days. We had a little bit of a spider mite infestation on that older leaf that we've been treating with neem oil, insecticidal soap, and just a little bit of a hope and a prayer. But she does have a new leaf that should be coming out here. Now, something to mention with these terrestrial species of philodendron is when you do receive them, they're usually chunks, and you don't want to pot them into the ground. You want to lay them just on top of the soil with the roots in the soil, into the soil. And I have actually used landscaping stakes to keep this girl stable so that she doesn't flop over while those roots get settled into the new pot. But definitely don't want to plant that chunk right here. It's not on a growing stem here beneath the soil line, because it will end up rotting, and then you will not have these beautiful leaves emerging. But highly recommend the plow maniai. It is one of the most unique leaves without no variegation. I know that's very popular, but look at just the depth of coloring and shading in those leaves and those crevices. Let's see if you can see there. That's it. And from what I've seen, these leaves do get huge, so I can't wait for this one to fully mature and just put out these big plump leaves. All right, next up we have, this is probably my favorite. I imported this burleymarks back in May. It has put out a few new leaves, and it is obviously a burleymarks verragata. And it is hardy, it is low maintenance in my opinion, and each leaf is so different in patterning. I mean, this one's truly a camo color. This one is a half moon leaf. This one has very little white but has splashing going on. This one I mistakenly watered the plants on top, and some dirty soil water got on it and damaged the white part of the leaf. These white parts are extremely sensitive to both leaf burn and things dropping on them, so do your best to keep those dry. Since then, I've actually started to bottom water all of my plants, because there's no sense in damaging leaves that are coming out. Half the battle is keeping it healthy and keeping it growing, so why damage the new growth with something that's just splashed on it? And then it's got several other leaves coming out here. This is probably the next one that's going to unfurl. So I just can't wait. This is definitely one of my favorites, as it is just a surprise every single time a new leaf comes out. Next we have my Philodendron squamy furum. No idea if I'm saying that correctly, but we're gonna go with it. This is very similar to the Florida Ghost and almost like a bipedifolium, but it has fuzzy stems. I don't know if you can see that, but little fuzzy stems there that are adorable. I guess if fuzzy stems are adorable, they are adorable to me. It does have a new leaf that's coming out here. Can't wait to see that one come out. But again, I find this one pretty darn easy. Very much like my Florida Ghost, I keep it on east facing. My potting patio is on the east, so east facing, gets morning sun until about 10:30 or so. I keep this on my middle shelf so the shade takes over and it receives the afternoon shade to cool down a little bit, and it seems happy as a clam. Next up we have my Philodendron branditiatum. I think this one is extremely unique. I'm actually going to bring it down here so you can see just how tall it is. Unlike the other philodendrons or terrestrial species, this one obviously is a climber, a vining climber at that. She was probably at half the size, probably only about here when I first received her about 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago. She's done nothing but continue to put out new leaves. She's got one unfurling actually right now. Let's see if I can get that in the frame. You can see that new leaf unfurling there. When they unfurl, they're almost a coppery tannish color, and then they turn into a deeper green, and that silver patterning comes out more pronounced as the leaf matures. Again, very easy to take care of in my opinion. Love to watch it climb. I'm probably gonna end up putting this girl on a moss pole so she can actually wrap herself around something, because I fear if I just give her a little stick, she's gonna just get too tall before I know what to do with her. Next up, we've got, this is my Philodendron splashgordon. Relatively common looking, but what attracted me to this is that you don't see them a whole lot. I did not import this one. This one was from a grower in the States. I did win it on an eBay auction. But I like these splashes that appear on the leaves. I don't know if you can see those. Again, I'm a big fan of leaves, variegation, different patterning, where each leaf comes out and it's a little bit different than the other one. We've got a new leaf unfurling here, and I can actually see that it's got some pretty prolific splash going on, so I can't wait to see what that one fully hardens off as. I do keep this one in some pretty good light, as I do with most of my variegated plants, to keep that patterning strong, because I know that some variegation and patterning is not stable in the plant. So if it doesn't receive enough good lighting, then it can actually revert back to a pure green form. And sometimes it can be saved by giving it a trim and a wish and a prayer, but sometimes it can't. So in order to not have to go through that ordeal at all, I've just been making sure to give these guys some pretty significant lighting. All right, we've got, next is my Philodendron Gloriosum. I received this from Richard Ralph on one of his infamous, famous, fantastic purges online. He was actually my first purge seller, and this was my first purge plant that I ever received. It was exhilarating. I can see why they are absolutely addicting and probably very dangerous. I received this perfectly packaged in the mail, so thank you, Richard. I very much appreciate it, and hopefully this guy grows into a big, beautiful, beautiful specimen, as I had my eye on some of your bigger specimens in some of your other purges. Again, this is a terrestrial species, so I made sure not to bury the stem below the soil because I don't want it to rot off. The roots were nice and healthy when I received it, and it does have a new growth that's coming out, if you can see that poking out there. It starts out red, and it is a little bit of a slow grower, I have to say. For me, I know they typically aren't, or traditionally they aren't, but for me, I'm very patiently waiting for it to put out yet another leaf, and hopefully we can make this a 3-leaf specimen before too long. But I absolutely love this. It's very classic. It's gained tremendous amount of popularity. It's very consistent, and quite honestly, I find it fairly low maintenance. So thanks again, Richard. Love the plant. Last but not least, oh, it's my big girl in my big pot. This beauty here. See, I'll lower her down. Any guesses? This is my beautiful painted lady. I know that when I did originally purchase her, she was very, very popular. She has become more and more accessible in the United States since then, but nonetheless, I adore this plant. She is, I'm going to stick her back up here for a moment because she's heavy. She just keeps on growing. I would say when I received her maybe 4 months ago, she was half the size, probably only to about here. She puts out a new leaf at least every week during this growing season and the wonderful humidity that we're getting in Florida here. I love the new leaves when they unfurl. They are a beautiful light green, almost yellow with that pink center line and that splash pattern. And she's even got one coming up right there. You can see even before the newest leaf hardens off. And she is gonna need another extension to her moss pole because she has just taken it over since I put it in about 3 weeks ago, and I didn't think I'd need to add an extension quite that fast. But this is my painted lady, and I absolutely love her. Highly recommend this plant if you don't have one in your collection already. Low maintenance, a pleasure to watch grow. Each leaf is such a surprise. I do have my eye on the Philodendron orange marmalade. Similar patterning, similar colors, but a little bit more the same structure of the Philodendron Prince of Orange. Not as much of a climber as the painted lady. So that one's probably next on my wish list. I've kept an avid eye out on eBay for good deals and healthy plants. I would also like to add to my collection next a Philodendron pastazanum. Those leaves are enormous, or maybe it's the McDowell version of the pastazanum, but I have had my eye on those, and truth be told, I have no idea what I would do with a plant that big. I do have the luxury of being outdoors in my potting patio, so there is a little bit of room to expand. And I do live in the tropics, but my goodness, if we have a harsh winter, I just don't know what I would do with that plant indoors. So that's it for my philodendron collection at the moment. I'm sure I'll be adding some more in the coming months, maybe even weeks. But this really is America's sweetheart as far as the houseplant community goes. Philodendrons have just skyrocketed in popularity, and between their variety, climbers and terrestrials and big leaf, small leaf, different patterns, variegation, I mean, you name it, philodendrons are an incredible species of houseplant, and I'm lucky to be in Florida where these guys are very, very happy outdoors for the most part, and I can't wait to show you what I add to my collection in the next few months. Talk to you later. This is Monica again, coming from your potting patio. Bye-bye.